SONYA Massey's shooting, or police-involved shooting, was a tragedy. And clearly, that's the case. Now, the question is whether or not the sheriff's deputy who shot her is going to be found guilty of some degree of murder. And so there are two different perspectives that are captured on body cam footage. And the first police officer's body cam footage, which saw it from an angle, does not fully capture the entire incident, or does not show you from the perspective of the deputy who shot Miss Massey. Now, again, it's a tragedy, and I want to talk to you about it from a logical standpoint. I want you all to understand from a legal perspective what the defense attorney is going to argue. He's going to argue that the police officer feared for his life. Now, some of you all may not be able to stomach this conversation. You may not like it. You might not like what's being said, but that still doesn't change the facts. The fact is, the law is set up to protect police officers. That's why we have qualified immunity. That's why you can't sue a police officer or a police station for negative hiring, or negligent hiring, I should say. This particular officer has had 6 different police assignments in 6 different jurisdictions in the past 4 years. Most of those jobs were part-time. He was a deputy sheriff at Sangamon County in Illinois, and this is where the incident happened. He was a full-time deputy sheriff there. Nevertheless, you can't even sue the county for hiring him because of qualified immunity, and there's a reason that's in place, because we don't want people who are actual criminals to tie our law enforcement officers up in litigation, nor do we want them to tie our cities and counties and administrators up in litigation, and for that to eventually cost money and revenue and lawsuits that the taxpayers will have to pay. So people have come up with those laws for the good of society. We do this to protect the taxpayers, because at the end of the day, the county, the city, all these different entities, they're funded by taxpayers. And that's those of you who pay taxes because of home ownership and all those different things. But I want to get down to the actual facts of this incident. It appears to me, based on the deputy's footage, that Ms. SONYA Massey, upon removing the pot of water, she dipped down and then she came back up. And based on his footage, it looks as though she was throwing the water at this deputy. Now, it does not matter what her intent was. And let me say that again. And I know that you all are triggered right now. It doesn't matter what her intent was. She may just have been holding it up so he can see, I'm not going to do anything to you. She may have been nervous. It does not matter what her intent was. It only matters the subjective or the objective, or actually the subjective view of the police officers. Did he feel as though his life was in danger? Is that something that we have to put ourselves in the place of a reasonable police officer? It's about what he felt. Again, the laws are designed to protect the police. The laws are designed to keep litigation down. And the reason we keep the litigation down, because the cost of litigation and judgments will be passed on to the taxpayers. That means you. But most of you all don't want to pay more money in taxes, so you need to just hear it out. Now, the greater picture is this. This is the greater point, and this is why I'm talking about this. Irrespective of what happens in that case, irrespective of whether or not this deputy walks or not, black women have got to understand that they are now being treated like black men have been getting treated. At this point, I'm surprised that they haven't dug up Miss Massey's history and try to impugn her credit or infer that something was defective about her in the form of criminal allegations, criminal history. I'm surprised that they haven't done that, because they did it with Trayvon Martin. They did it with Alton Sterling. They did it with so many other black men. But she's getting the black man treatment right now. Now, the thing you have to understand is, unfortunately, and I've mentioned this before, I said this 4 years ago, as I looked at the incarceration trends, I noticed that black women had an uptick in incarceration and prosecution. I said this 4 years ago after about 2.5 years of looking at it. Black women are being targeted by the judicial system because they make better prisoners. They're easier to manage, and the officers get, these private institutions and these private prisons get paid just as much money to house women prisoners. In fact, they may be able to get more if you count the health needs, the special health needs that women have. And on top of that, women are easier to manage than men. They're less violent, and they're easier to control as far as prison riots and violence, because they're not as strong. Nevertheless, I pointed that out, and now you see it happening. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, if this officer is found not guilty, then there's going to be riots and mayhem in the street. And I want to explain to you all this. The reason people come and riot and protest, and Dr. Martin Luther King said it best. He said, riots are the voice of the voiceless. Riots are the voice of the innocent. Black women, unfortunately, because of social media, because of media, have developed a horrible reputation for being disruptive, being loud, being violent. All you have to do is just look at the videos that are replete throughout the internet, whether it's TikTok, social medias like YouTube, Facebook, whatever. We see African-American women being shown at their low point in a horrible light. And the truth is, these are not the black women that I grew up with and that raised me. These are actually low-class, belligerent, disrespectful women posing as black women. They are giving good black women a bad name. Nevertheless, all black women inherit this reputation, just like good black men who are honest, hardworking, law-abiding citizens get lumped into the same category as thugs and criminals. And so, because of the reputation that black women now have, there's not going to be this outcry, because what they don't see is a human being shot. They see a belligerent, disrespectful person from a group of people who are known to be riotous and violent and loud and belligerent. That's what they see. That's the public. That's the public's perception. That's the reputation. And you don't have to like what I'm saying. I lived through this as a black man. I know what it's like to be the person. I know what it's like to be the persona non grata. I know what it's like to be perceived as a thug. When the police pull you over, there's already some sort of inference that you're a thug or a criminal. That's the life of black men. That's the life that most black men aware of. We have conversations with our sons about that. The perspective that others have of us based on mass media, based on statistics that are shared without context. This is a reputation that black men have, so nobody feels sorry for us. And unfortunately, Miss Massey, because she's a black woman, even if this police officer is found not guilty or if he accepts a plea, people are going to be upset. Some people are going to be upset, but you're not going to have the public at large say, oh, well, you know, this innocent woman, because of the reputation that black women have. You live and die by your reputation. That's why your reputation is so important. This is why people and nations go out of their way to guard their reputation. As much crime and criminality as Asians commit, they don't have the reputations for being criminals. And yet you have most of the Asian countries, China included, are at the source of the opium problem. You have the triad. You have the Japanese gangs. You have years and years of their criminality, but they don't have their reputation. Even in actuality, they do a lot more mechanized crime and they make a lot more money from their criminality than the typical African American ever would, or African Americans in general. But because they don't have that reputation, they don't suffer from it. Even our Samoan friends, very culturally, they do not shy away from violence. If you ever want to know just how violent Samoans and people from the South Pacific Island can be, go on back there behind Oahu, Honolulu, and go back there to the backside of the island and hang out over the weekend. And see if you don't see violence. And I'm talking about the island of Hawaii. I'm trying to explain to you. Violent people, but they don't have that reputation. They have the reputation of, Moana, surfers, people who eat coconuts. What I'm trying to explain to you all is black Americans in general have a reputation for being violent. We have a reputation for, you see all the stuff. You see all the things they say about us and how we're portrayed in movies and how there seems to be an overrepresentation of criminality as far as when it concerns black Americans, and yet they don't push the educated, hardworking, dedicated father. We have the reputation of being deadbeat fathers when in actuality, we're the most involved fathers. We see this. And so now that same reputation is being shed and not shed, but being cast upon black women. There was a time when black women were known for being what they call sapphires. Yeah, she'll put her hand on her hip and she'll swing her hair from side to side. But at the end of the day, she was still a woman. At the end of the day, she was a Diane Carroll. She was a Diana Ross. She was a Felicia Rashad, a Claire Huxtable type person. All the beautiful women, all the elegant women that we've had. She was that woman. She might have been a little spicy and a little loud, but at the end of the day, she was never perceived as being violent and harmful. But now, with the rise of these modern day rappers, whether it be Sukiana, Sexy Red, Lil' Kim, black women are perceived as harlots. They're perceived as and with the rise of the so-called gangster rap chick, you have people like Cardi B who are cosplaying foundational black American women, and they're mimicking the worst of black American culture, and they're mass producing it and putting it on song and radio. And the world says, well, that's how those black women are. So it hasn't helped black women's reputation. So I say all that to say, because they have stripped black women of their humanity, because they have stripped them of their femininity, because black women are now been convinced that it is acceptable for them to say, number one, they are strong, number two, they're independent, and number three, they don't need a man. They're not fit, feminine, and friendly. That's not the reputation the Black American women have, because that's not what they've been saying they are for the past 70 years. And so who are you? Now you're just a woman who gets shot in her kitchen, having done nothing. Another lesson that we can learn here is don't call the police. Ladies, especially black folks, I tell my family all the time, we don't call the police to the house. If we have an issue, we deal with it somewhere else. You can go make a police report, but don't call the police to your house. Because when you call the police to the home of a black man, especially, you are asking for the police to come and do two things: shoot them or take them to prison. Neither one of them, though, is a good result. And any black man worth his salt, especially a black father, has told his son that if any woman calls the police on you, that relationship is over. You don't even wait around till the police show up. The minute you find out she's called the cops, you are ghost like Casper, because she has basically demonstrated a reckless disregard for your life. I don't care what it is, unless there's something that's that serious. You don't call the police and bring them to your house, because you're gonna make the problem worse. All they're gonna do is show up and try to find somebody to arrest. They're gonna start asking for IDs. And next thing you know, somebody's in handcuffs. Somebody's got an attitude. In any pushback, why you asking me for my ID? That makes you seem suspicious. Why do you want to come in my house? Well, why can't we come in your house? That makes you seem suspicious. And next thing, the guns come out. And heaven forbid somebody lose their temper. Why would you ever call the police to your house about something that minor? I get it. She's a woman living alone. There was glass broken outside of her home, and she called the cops. The elephant in the room is, where was her man? The elephant in the room is, we have a lot of single women of African descent, African American women, who are going to be by themselves for decades now. And they're going to have the needs of a man. And unfortunately, whether it be EBT, welfare, or even the police, the government is not going to give you what your own man can give you. In the way in which they give you what it is that you think you need, a place to stay, money, safety, shelter, it's never going to be the same as what a man who loves you does. The truth is, SONYA Massey died because she didn't have a man in her house, because she's been tricked by black society and the dominant society to believe that she was strong, independent, and didn't need a man, when in actuality she did. She thought being a baby mama was sufficient because that's what society tells her. And now this poor woman in her late 30s, in need of the security that a man could provide, in need of somebody to go see what that bump was in the night, she made a mistake and called the police, thinking that they didn't see her like they see black men. They saw her as a woman, when in reality that wasn't the truth. They saw her as a threat. So they see black women the same as they see black men. They see us as threats. This is something we live with as black men. And the whole situation is unfortunate, especially considering how the circumstances went down. This is definitely what I would consider a gray area. On one hand, you have two police officers who respond to an alleged break-in, a possible break-in, a trespasser. They arrive, they meet a small African-American woman. She's invited into their house. The cops, she invites a police officer into her house. They begin to question her on her name. They want to get ID so they can prepare an incident report. The circumstances are, there's some pots boiling on the stove. The cop directs this woman to go and turn the stove off. She picks up the pot. This police officer, who apparently has a checkered past in the profession, then overreacts. Ms. Massey is alarmed. The police alarmed. The situation escalates. And if you look at the video from the deputy who shot her, if you look at it, look, I don't know what was on Ms. Massey's mind. Nobody will ever know. But if you look at the video, based on the video footage, it looks like she was about to throw the water on him. That's how it looks. And whether you like what I'm saying or not, that's the perspective. That is what the jury is going to see. The jury is going to see, it looks like this woman was trying to throw hot water on this cop. And if that's the case, if they can if there's a reasonable doubt, this man walks. Period. The deck is already stacked against the citizen when it involves a police shooting. It's already stacked against the citizen. And now they have video footage that shows this is not a George Floyd situation where you see a police officer kneeling on a black man for several minutes until he dies. This is not that situation. This is something different. Conceivably, the police officer and his attorneys could argue that he feared for his life. And that's what they will do. They're going to say that hot water could be used as a dangerous weapon, or in the manner it would be used, it could be dangerous to him. Scalding hot water to the face and eyes. And again, you don't have to like what I'm saying. I don't even care if you don't like what I'm saying. But you're going to hear it, because this is what's going to happen. And the question is, what do we learn from this lesson? What do we learn? Number one, you got to protect your reputation. That's the first thing. Unfortunately, black men have had our reputations run through the mud, not just by black women, but the mass media has taken it, whether it be music. We've had black men who've been incentivized to make degenerative music about unaliving black men, about criminal activity, whether it be dope dealing, gangbangers. So we've had black men sell out and destroy our reputation. On top of that, it seems like every other movie back in the 80s and 90s was a black man committing some sort of violent act. In the 70s, we were pimps and gangsters. And now in the 2000s, with all of that, plus they have us leading the alphabet community. So this is our reputation. I mean, think about it. We started off as enslaved people in this country, and they called us lazy and violent when we weren't the ones that did. We weren't committing any violence against white folks other than defending ourselves. But because they had control of the mass media, they dictated what the reputation of black men was specifically. And so here we are. Now the script is flipped, and black women have become the target of the system, the media, the social media, and your reputation is in the toilet. So don't expect a overwhelming amount of people from the masses of the population to just come to this woman's aid, because they're going to say, well, you know what? You know how those people are. You know how those black women are. That's the same thing they said about black men. And it's just a sad situation all the way around. The lessons that you can learn from this ladies, and if you ladies are listening, and fellas, y'all got to tone it down. Stop twerking on tables. Stop fighting at Walmart. Just chill out. Start beginning to change your reputation. Because you don't want to do what black men had. You can't deal with what black men had to deal with. You're not going to last. And look what it's done to us. You got a whole large group of black men they feel safer. They've just given up that masculinity. They're just wearing skirts. just to show that they're not dangerous. You got another group of black men who saying, I'm just checking out. They don't go to church, they don't go to school, they work a minimum job, they're not trying to do anything. You got another group of black men who are well-to-do who say, you know what, I'm going to check out in another way. I'm a passport bro. And then you got another group of black men who say, you know what, I'm going to check out, I'm going to go date interracial. So they'll know I'm harmless. This is what it's done to black men, being attacked by the system, having our reputation maligned. And I don't want that for black women. And no man that loves black women or had a black mother, a black grandmother, black auntie, black sister, we don't want that for them, because the good black women are going to get caught up in this mess. And that's the biggest tragedy.